I guess I don't need to tell anybody listening right now that this thing with Steve Jobs hit me, the death of Steve Jobs hit me like a freight train. It just ran me over. I was teaching, ironically, an entrepreneur class last night at Duquesne. The class ended right around 9 o'clock or so, and walked out in the hallway, and one of the students, in fact, a student that I met through Lou Wheeler, another entrepreneurial experience in my life, Derek McDonald, said, Professor Morris, I'm pretty sure that Steve Jobs is dead. And I remember so distinctly when my business partner walked into my office in 1983 and told me that my father had passed away. I had just flown in from Las Vegas on the red eye, and it was early in the morning, and he had died that night while I was on the red eye. And, it just knocked me over. It just crushed me. This was similar, very similar, for a lot of reasons. I guess you could say I feel like the last man standing. You see, Steve Jobs was my inspiration. He was my comrade in arms relative to my ongoing battle with neuroendocrine cancer. Steve and I share a number of things. I say Steve and I like he's a personal friend, but I feel as if he is. But we share a lot more than just our baby boomer heritage. For one thing, both of us have been in high tech our entire lives. For another thing, Steve has a lot of connections here in Pittsburgh, including connections with Regis McKenna, who will be on the show here a little bit later on in the hour. Regis McKenna, of course, the guy whose company designed the Apple logo and a frequent guest here on the show. And probably the one thing that holds us together more than anything else is the fact that Steve Jobs has, or I should say had, the very same form of cancer that I'm fighting, neuroendocrine cell cancer. Regardless of what you read in the prints, it's neuroendocrine cancer that he has. It's identical. It's extremely rare, and it's not pancreatic cancer. If Steve had pancreatic cancer, he'd have been dead 7 years ago when he was originally diagnosed with neuroendocrine cancer in his pancreas. As he has been treated, so have I been treated. We've used the same treatments. We've seen a lot of the same doctors and talked to a lot of the same people along the way. And so you can understand how personally I took this, because the only other person I've ever heard of, besides a caller to the show, there was one caller to the show that said she had neuroendocrine cell cancer, but the only other person I know with it was Catherine Baker Knoll, and of course she passed away some years ago. I personally thought Steve Jobs would never die. I just saw him as one of those irascible sons of guns that was just too ornery and frankly too busy to let any disease get the better of him. And I also figured that as long as he was alive, that we'd see this thing through together. Do I know Steve personally? No, as I said, only through the eyes of my good friend, and as I mentioned, the individual that actually designed the Apple logo, for Steve, Regis McKenna. So through Reg, I've come to know him better. I can't tell you how many times I've talked about writing to him or calling him and saying, let's talk about our disease, but I figured he doesn't want to hear from me. That's not the attitude that I teach. That's not the attitude that I preach, and yet I took that approach with Steve Jobs. I'm not sure why. I did meet him once many years ago in San Jose when he was just getting started, and I met the Woz the same day, although just in passing. I guess you could say my pain over this matter is on three fronts. Obviously, the already mentioned cancer connection, but also the fact that I'm a huge fan of entrepreneurs, and I've always seen Steve Jobs as the ultimate entrepreneur, along with Don Jones. And thirdly, the fact that I'm a little bit nervous about the effect of his death on our economy, and I mean that. This is the number one pipeline. This is the number one developer of new products. This is the number one innovator in the American economy, and we don't need that right now. We need those products to keep coming. We need Apple Corporation. Why was Steve Jobs such a success? Partially because of that innovation, but a big part of his success stems from the fact that the man saw things that mere mortals didn't see. There's a story going around right now about his seeing a pixel out of place on a new product and held up production to get that one pixel cleaned up. That's the kind of eye for detail that is part and parcel of all great entrepreneurs, all great managers that I've seen have that trait. They see the tiniest little detail and they won't let it pass because they can't let it pass. I know I'm like that, lesser now than I was when I was younger. Our CEO, Brian McMahon, is like that. As I say, there's probably no worse time in American history to lose an individual of Steve Jobs' caliber than right now. This country right now is in trouble, and it needs every innovator it can get its hands on. Jobs not only innovates, he inspires others to innovate. So I guess I could say that as I analyzed the treatment program for both his cancer and mine, I learned that his treatments, as I said, have pretty much mirror imaged my own. And of course, that makes me very nervous. It seems to me most people with neuroendocrine get 7 years. That's what the book calls for. He was diagnosed in 2004. So was I. I called my oncologist last night. It was the third call I made, and after learning, and I said, of the three of us, and again referring to Catherine Baker Knoll and Steve Jobs, why am I the only one still standing? And her answer was something along the lines of body chemistry and the fact that my cancer is located in different places and so on and so forth. But now that I'm on my own, and I feel as if I am on my own now in this battle, I know it's going to be much tougher to face each and every day. But I will, and I will, knowing that until I'm gone, I'm here. And for so long as I'm here, I will continue to help others succeed as entrepreneurs and as free market capitalists. Steve Jobs, phenomenal, phenomenal human being. Let me tell you about today's show. We're going to have, as I mentioned, Regis McKenna, who was around at the beginning, and in fact, I have an email that Reed sent to the guys here earlier today that when Steve Jobs was named CEO of the Year by Forbes magazine, Regis sent him a note, and Regis today sent us a copy of the note he wrote back. He said, "Thanks, Regis. We are both very lucky. We both stumbled into what we love doing very young in life. And then I've been able to do it for a very long time. As I look around, I see that that's pretty rare." Steve, sent to Regis McKenna.